All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to church this morning. I'm going to make sure we're going live here. We are. Well, good morning, everybody, virtually, too. Happy Sunday, and happy May 1st. It's May 1st. One of my questions I like to ask is, how's everybody feeling about the weather? So just take a second, how you feeling? It's better it's rain than snow, right? We need the moisture. It's a good thing for all of us, so we can be positive about that. But I'm really glad that you guys are here and joining us this morning. We're going to have a great morning. We're going to sing a couple of worship songs together. Kathy is here to speak with us. We are going to be learning a lot of really important and good, valuable information as a church that is a part of doing the work of being inclusive and loving and being a safe place. And so I'm really happy that you guys are here with us this morning to do that. I'm going to run through just a couple of announcements that are going on. We're going to sing together. Then we'll take a 5-minute break for you to get more coffee, chat. You can use the bathrooms. If you need a bathroom before that, they're just right down the hallway on the right. So a couple of things that are coming up. We're really interested in staying connected in this time of where we've spent a lot of time kind of apart from each other. Sometimes it's hard to figure out how do we stay reconnected and re-engage with one another. Church is a great place to do that, but oftentimes we like to be someplace that's not a church. So one of the things that's coming up is that we are going to have a pub night at Ursa Minor on May 19th at 6:30. So if you're looking for a place to just rub elbows with other people and have conversation, and if you want to have something to drink or not, that's up to you. But this is just a great place for you to come and connect, maybe deepen some conversations that you've perhaps started here at the church, and you want to have some more of that. Also, we have our wonderful church location here in Cloquet, but we're going to be having a service in Duluth and be joining in with some people in Duluth, and that's going to be on May 22nd. That's going to be 11 a.m. service. So on the 22nd, there won't be church here. There'll be church service in Duluth, just on that Sunday. So come, bring the whole family. We're going to be having all of our kids' area stuff is going to be set up, and we're going to be worshiping and celebrating together. And then at the end, barbecue outside. So let's hope for that really beautiful and gorgeous weather. So we get to worship and join together, and then we're going to have some barbecue. We are going to sing a couple of songs together. During the week when I'm thinking through how I want us to stay connected and engaged, there's usually, and I've shared this all with you before, I'm usually looking for not like the entire song, but it's either like a melody line or just a phrase, something that I can meditate on. Something short and simple that I can roll back in throughout the week, something that gives me courage or gives me hope. So if you choose to sing, you're always welcome to sing out loud. If you don't want to, if you want to just sit and relax, the words are going to be up on the screen for you to watch. The bigger goal is that you find a place to connect with God and with yourself as we sing. So I'm going to pray before we get started here. So God, we just welcome you in this place right now. And we know that you are with us all the time. When we're here, when we're at home, when we're out, we want to recognize your presence in all things. And so even as we sing, as we drink our cup of coffee, as we sit around these tables, would you make yourself known to us? Even when we're looking outside, and even with the weather, the way it is, whether it's sunny or rainy or cloudy, God, would you make yourself real to us and would be able to see the goodness and the beauty in everything that you're doing. In your name. So God, I look to you, and I won't be overwhelmed. Give me vision to see things like you do. God, I look to you. You're where my help comes from. Give me wisdom, and you know just what to do. Sing that again. God, I look. It's God, I look to you, and I won't be overwhelmed. Give me vision. You're where my help comes from. Give me wisdom. You know just what to do. And I will love you, Lord, my strength. And I will love you, Lord, my shield. And I will love you, Lord, my rock. Forever all my days I will love you, God. So God, I look to you and I won't be overwhelmed. Give me vision to see things like you do. And God, I look to you, and you're where my help comes from. Give me wisdom. You know just what to do. And I will love you, Lord, my strength. And I will love you, Lord, my shield. And I will love you, Lord, my rock. Forever all my days I will love you, God. Yes, I will love you. And I will love you, Lord, my strength. And I will love you, Lord, my shield. And I forever all my days I will love. Hallelujah, our God reigns. Our God reigns. And hallelujah, our God reigns. Forever all my days, hallelujah. And I open up to you this love that makes me new. And oh, may my heart receive this love that carries me from the head to the heart. You take me on a journey of letting go and get lost in you. From the head to the heart, you take me on a journey of letting go and get lost in you. My heart is open wide, and I will receive your light. You give me faith like a child. In you my heart runs wild, 'cause there's no shame in looking like a fool, to give you what I can't keep, to take a hold of you. 'Cause there's no shame in looking like a fool to give you what I can't keep and take a hold of you. So more than words, more than good ideas, I found your love in the open field. And more than words, more than good ideas, yes, I found your love in the open fields. More than words, more than good ideas, I found your love in the open fields. More than words, more than good ideas, I found your love in the open fields. There's no shame in looking like a fool to give you what I can't keep and take a hold of you. Yes, there's no shame in looking like a fool to give you what I can't keep and take a hold of you. So God, we look for you. And whether we find you in the field or we find you in a conversation, whether we find you just sitting quietly, God, make yourself real to us today. Amen. Okay, so we're going to take a few minutes. I'm going to put on some music. You have about 5 minutes. If you want to spend some time chatting with somebody that you haven't yet, you can. Or if you feel safe just staying in your seat, feel free to do that too. Bathrooms are down the hall. And then when I get back, I'll introduce Kathy. Thank you. Everybody. So I want to introduce Kathy Hermes. She's a Duluth area educator for National Safe Place and the coordinator for Together for Youth. And we were just having a little discussion about, I can't wait for you to introduce yourself too, just one of the ways that she shares her names with students, because she spent a lot of time as a student as an educator teaching science for a while too. But what I'm looking forward today is for all of us to learn and to grow. Part of our practice in our church is liberation theology, which is where we believe that that God believes in freedom for all of us, and that we can see the beauty and the joy in every single human being. And so part of that is us doing our work of listening and learning as allies. And so as she's speaking to us today, there's going to be time for you to, if you have a question, if you're stuck on something, you're like, I don't really quite understand, you can ask. We were talking about that. Kathy is open to being stopped in the middle to answer some questions for y'all, but I want to bring her up. Would you guys give a warm welcome for Kathy Hermes?
Thank you for the setup, Nikki, to do my opening day of school introduction. So I'm Ms. Hermes, that rhymes with worms, germs, and other biological terms, including gymnosperms, angiosperms, and regular old boy sperms. My pronouns are she, her, they, them. Another way to communicate that to people is that my pronouns are she, they. I'm from the Chester Creek Watershed in the East Hillside of Duluth. I work out of this building these days now that I'm not teaching about worms and germs anymore. This is the Center for Changing Lives building, kind of on the far east end of downtown Duluth. Is this working out? Yeah. Oh, okay. And though we're still officially closed due to COVID, we're supporting a lot of youth out of that building. There's housing in that building. There's a free teen health center, which I'm attached to, and groups for young people aged out of foster care or soon to age out of foster care, supervised visits, including other services as well. So the things I'm attached to, Together for Youth group, it's a social support group for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, allied, intersex, two-spirit, demi-girls, demi-boys, pansexual, pan-romantic, and all other normally and beautifully identified 14 to 20-year-olds who need some snacks because it's 4 p.m. when we welcome them. They need a space as safe as we can make it, and they need some adult oversight, although they might object to that suggestion. And sometimes they need some really intense interventional work too, because of the danger that is out there for them, and because of the heavy load of microaggressions that they carry, because we do that to them. I also, I guess I'll mention that Together for Youth got started in the mid-1990s, and it has met continuously since that time. 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock every Wednesday, mostly out of the Gloria Dei Lutheran Church, until the fire happened there, and then we had to shift temporarily to the Ordine building downtown, and now we shifted into the Center for Changing Lives, which is about a 3-year-old building at this point. But a long, long history, started by carrying mostly parents in Duluth who were watching their LGBTQ kids suffer in school. I know the conversation began in 1991 and culminated in the establishment of a group by, it was either 95 or 96. That's a lot of dedication from caring adults in a dicey time to show that you care about that particular population. So great thanks to those parents back in the day. I'm also attached to the Free Teen Health Center. We do HIV testing outreach work as well as syphilis testing now. There is an outbreak of both HIV and syphilis in the Duluth area. That includes Duluth and 30 miles around it. So all the more important that we are doing that work. And we also have very recently started doing COVID vaccination hesitance work among 13 to 24-year-old BIPOC and LGBTQIA2 plus young people. So we work with Family Freedom Center on their Blacksinated project they say they're unapologetically educating about COVID in the Black community. That's their tagline. And then we have our Vaxicorn mascot that helps us hopefully reach LGBTQI2 plus young people. That was created by a Together for Youth member. It's like the cutest thing I've seen in 2022. And so I was asked to come here and share with you why do I do this work, and to give you a sense for the conditions of this time in history for young people coming up. And I'm going to speak from the perspective of young people much of the time because I work with young people. However, the trials and tribulations and the joys that young people who are LGBTQIA2+, what they're experiencing translates right up into the adult world. Schoolyard bullies become workplace bullies. And some of the very same language translates. Sometimes it gets more sophisticated and sneaky when you bring it up into the adult workplace. So again, I'm youth-centered here, but so much of what I'm going to say is applicable to the adult world for LGBTQIA2+ folks. Just trying to be good citizens and get all the stuff that they deserve out of their time here on the planet with us. So, I do what I do because of those 14 to 20-year-olds that I hang out with, because they're creative and resilient and awesome and cranky and oppositional and super smart, and they help me with technology. So I derive direct benefit from my association with them at their age and my current age. I also do this because of these two. I'm the weeping butch, so I'm probably going to cry at some point. So the tagline here, using the proper pronouns is suicide prevention. And there's an image of Evan Owen Adams on the left and Aidan Thomas Immerfall on the right. 2 young trans men lost to suicide from our community. Our loss as community members, loss to the local trans community, loss to the young people, especially who Evan was influencing as a social worker at Lifehouse, loss to those who want to learn about queer experience, trans experience in particular, because Aidan did this presentation with me. Not sure I'll get far enough, but we'll do. I potentially could cover some of the material that Aidan would typically be sharing when we're doing this presentation. Don't want to suggest by that little phrase up at the top that one instance of misgendering somebody by not using the correct pronouns is going to be the thing that will cause them to choose suicide. It's the multiple endurance of many, many situations like that at school, at home, maybe at church, at work, out in the community at large. It's our own personal biochemistries that define how our well-being is experienced and expressed. It's not having sun for a really long, long time. It's all kinds of things that influence that tragic decision. But I would say if you recognize times where you've delivered a microaggression, like misgendering somebody by using the incorrect pronoun, balance that out. Make sure you offer up an affirmation. I bet you're good at it. Just tell them they got a really great shirt on that day before you part company. Because there's a lot of power in that. I think we underestimate our ability to undo little harms that get done, not necessarily by us, but by all kinds of other people too. As I talk to people, I hear about the Government Services Center in downtown Duluth, how that's a place where lots of microaggressions are delivered by the frontline staff. Not that they're being deliberate and malicious, I'm guessing just not well trained and harming people by saying things that especially are identity centered. So anyhow, with Evan and Aidan in my heart as I speak to you. So the conditions of the day. This is a grim story, but I want you to know, remember the Vaxicorn if it's getting too heavy for you. I mean, conditions are grim. Conditions were grim prior to COVID changing how we can relate with one another. And COVID has deepened that, but our sociopolitical climate has taken a nasty turn. And so it's important to know that safe space that did exist has been compressed. There's less of it. There are fewer safe channels between those safe spaces. Some of those are totally eliminated. So for LGBTQIA2 plus people, it's a matter of scampering, navigating the best you can from one space to the next that you perceive to be space that might actually be safe, not always though. So it's really important to be mindful of that, to elbow out and make more safe space, whether it's temporary or more permanent, and help people see those safer paths of travel between safe spaces. There's a distinct difference between the metro area and greater Minnesota. Here we are in little rural Cloquet. It's the frontier up here, especially around gender identity. We've gotten better around sexual orientation with the passage of the same-sex marriage legislation in 2012, but it is pretty hostile out there in general. As a result of the compressed safe space, kind of the general difficulty of the time socio-politically, and the progress we still need to make to put a positive spin on it in rural areas, LGBTQIA2S plus kids and adults we have to live in 2 different worlds, or 3 different worlds, or 4 different worlds, depending upon the condition of what it's like in our workplace or our schools, or in the general community. And we're code switching constantly. We're changing what words we choose to use. We might change what we choose to dress in. We're changing maybe the way we even express our body language as we shift from space to space and do a quick assessment of, is this space safer than the space I just walked from? So it's exhausting. It's really exhausting to constantly have to be recalibrating. In your mind, you're taking your best guess. Unless there's good people dropping some big fat clues for you, then that makes this kind of recalibration process easier. It's also a time where our core identities, LGBTQIA2 plus adults as well as kids, are being bantered about in social media settings, on network news, in a very negative way. Whatever your identity is, imagine your identity being spoken about very negatively every single day on radio and social media, on television. Trans people and non-binary people are actively being erased right now. Imagine that. Think about your core identities relative to sexual orientation or gender identity, and think about politicians, legislators trying to erase your existence. They're not going to make legislation about you. You don't even exist. We don't even have to talk about you. That's what's going on right now. Very serious erasure of LGBTQI2 plus people. The image in the upper right corner, 100 plus anti-LGBTQ bills have been introduced in 29 states. That's from 2000, I believe it was 2017. And there was a big difference in legislative activity shifting from the Obama administration to the Trump administration. So that probably looks like that must be the worst of times there, that 100 plus anti-LGBTQ pieces of legislation. But drop down to the bottom image there, the legislative tracker. If you were to get on that today, it's kept up to date, you would see that there are hundreds of anti-LGBTQ plus pieces of legislation being introduced in states. And what has happened now is, because we've got a different president from 2017, federal level policy changes are not likely to take place that are anti-LGBTQ. So what's going on? Individual governors are doing it state by state. And so that's why we've got more. We've got individual governors and individual states pushing pieces of legislation out there. I did this presentation this past week, and I checked the tracker right before the presentation, and there were 6 active anti-LGBTQ pieces of legislation going through Minnesota legislature at this time. And I know some of it's aimed at trans athletes in particular. Although our Minnesota State High School League has done some solid work for trans athletes. So those current bills that we're seeing in the United States, they're anti-trans bill, they're school policy bills, they're healthcare bans, they're anti-LGBTQ in general, and they're youth sports bans. And so living with that kind of as the social political milieu, we need to the best of our ability, those of us down here on the ground, non-legislators as we are, we can just do our best to carve out safe space so that people can let their guard down, drop their shoulders, and just like hang and chat and do what you want to do. And then have to gird your loins and go back out into the big old world. I mean, nothing. I love L&M, so I'm pleased that I'm here in Cloquet, and so I can hit up L&M on my way home. But for me, the safety quotient changes. My feeling here is different than my feeling's going to be when I go into that kind of space. And we could, I could talk about that for a long time. But so anyhow, help kids, help adults too, who are LGBTQIA2+ identified. Let our guard down more often. Help make spaces safer, so we've got a little relaxation time before we get out and try to navigate the world. I'm going to give you an example of how this living in two worlds affects me as a presenter. So this was the title slide that was up before I started talking. And I don't always use this slide because it's got the word queer in it. And I recognize I may have made some of you feel uncomfortable because that word was up there, and I'm probably going to start saying it more now because LGBTQIA2+ is a mouthful. And I didn't see too much discomfort yet, so I think I'll use the word queer verbally, and there you see it visually. But if it's a rural area, you qualify, so I had to think about it. If it's an audience that is elders mostly or exclusively, I often will not use this slide out of respect because queer is still a powerfully triggering word for many of our elders. Or if I've just kind of gotten some clues that there could be some oppositional folks in the audience, I would use this as a title instead. Not that might not be triggering also for some people. So instead of using queer, NQT2S LGBIA+ cultural considerations. That array of letters comes from the new commission that was established in Duluth. And it's a sign that most of the people on that commission forming group were young because they put the NQT2S in front of the other part. That's the sign of youth culture getting a little power. And it was a fight. Actually, I was on the committee too. I was one of 2 elder type people. And it was a struggle. We talked a long time about what they were going to name that and the order that the letters should be put there. So yeah, this is the title slide I'd use if I think I might be making people too uncomfortable right off the bat. But I did start with this because I speculated you'd be a safe audience. And you look at so far. Yeah. Non-binary, I qualify. Queer, I qualify. Trans, I qualify. Two-spirit, nope. Lesbian, back in the day, yes. Gay, bisexual. Intersex is about anatomy. I am not of intersex anatomy. A is asexual or ally. And actually, and depends upon who you ask, don't hold me as the authority. Because remember, I'm an elder, and I've been learning from the younger people, and I edit this all the time when I get schooled. So I said that. Other people might tell you different things about some of those letters. And some people would say that that plus on the end is offensive. But the plus on the end is there at least to say, well, yeah, we don't have the letters up there for demi-boys and demi-girls, and sometimes there's a U included in that list of letters too. And here's what I'll say, because our time is passing quickly here. I could spend a lot of time talking about terminology, but you know what? We're beautiful human beings. Make us feel significant, help us belong, keep us as safe as you can, and it's cool. And we can toss those labels. But there are reasons to hold on to the labels, like this socio-politically volatile time when people are trying to erase our very existence. We got to keep shouting out those words. We're still here. Or, especially for people who are freshly coming out, and maybe it was stumbling upon a word that was like the moment that like the light bulb went on, and so when there's people really like holding on to the terms, do your best to use those terms about them, with them, to help their process. And our identities are fluid, so they change over time, and they will change back and forth and back and forth and beyond the boundaries we thought we had established. That is normal. So just be ready for words and pronouns to change, but remember that fundamental way to view all of us, that, yeah, we need to be made to feel significant, made to belong, and kept as safe as we reasonably can. So a little climate check nationally. This is from information about youth. The blue and the purple states are, by this metric, the good states to live in, as far as serving youth. The purple states, where Minnesota has its color, are states that actually prohibit discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity, explicitly prohibiting discrimination based on sexual orientation and discrimination. So good on us here in Minnesota. And then second place are the blue states, so that's Wisconsin. They protect against discrimination relative to sexual orientation only. They haven't thrown in the gender part of it yet. Where you don't want to be by this particular map is where the fire truck red and the brick red states are denoted. And different look at it. And Florida would be red now. This is a relatively fresh map, but things changed negatively in Florida. So the red states they're called no promo homo states, or the don't say gay states, or the states where they're trying to push through what typically are called parental rights acts. And so teachers are forbidden from speaking about sexual orientation or gender identity in a curricular context. If it was casual conversation, that would be okay, but can't be mentioning those queer people in an educational context. And imagine a queer kid growing up in those states and knowing that your teachers are forbidden from talking about people who you need for your representation to like become a happy, healthy adult life form, wherever you happen to be growing up. And then the gray states are called the non-enumeration states, and these are states where they can have anti-bullying policies, rules, laws, but they can't enumerate who are the protected classes. This is a typical tactic when there are scared adults who don't want to protect or admit that queer people exist, and so they take everybody off the table. We can't name anybody because somebody here is trying to advocate for LGBTQIA2+ people, so we're going to avoid offering them protection by saying we're not going to name anybody who can be protected. Typical tactic. I'll share a corollary example about Southridge School. And Southridge School has done fantastic work. Southridge School has a lot of work to do yet. Are you from Southridge School? Okay, so this is back in the day when the school just got open, and there was a art teacher there named Carolyn Olson, and she supported their student gender and sexuality group, and they wanted to put up a rainbow flag because that's what you do when you're queer and you're feeling your oats, and you want other people to like know that you're there in that space, and it turned into a big controversy, and they ended up. Initially taking down all the flags. There were flags for other things. They took them all down, and I think they got to go back. Are all the flags back? Okay. But they did that thing where we can't let those queer flag-bearing people have their flag up there. We're going to say no to all the flags. That happened in Marshall, Minnesota. I think it was 2 years ago in a middle school. They wanted to have a rainbow flag up. People went batty over that, and then they had to take all the flags down so they wouldn't have to look at the rainbow flag. That's a very common tactic, especially in rural areas. Okay, what's the story in Minnesota? Where's the safer space and where's the more microaggressive space? This is a map from the 2012 vote on same-sex marriage and the amendment that had to be dealt with before the vote on same-sex marriage. So the red counties would be the relatively safe counties using this metric. The red counties are the counties that voted in favor of same-sex marriage in Minnesota. The green counties, nope. So this may be a simplistic suggestion on my part, but I'm going to say that, the green counties are probably generally less safe for LGBTQIA2 plus people, and the red counties would be a bit safer. But that's a metro and a college university related phenomenon there, those counties that are red. Cook County's the outlier, but that's them those hippies and yeah, that's Grand Marais, huh? Yeah. But I would say if we looked at St. Louis County township by township, I bet we'd stay red, right? Down by Duluth, but I bet the rest of the county, you wouldn't have to get too much far north of Duluth, and the rest of the county would flip green on this particular vote. And imagine if there was some kind of piece of legislation that we could vote on as citizenry around protecting trans students right now. Would it look the same? Or would we lose some of that red even, and it would get worse? I think it would get worse probably if we had a ballot question about protecting trans students in some way. So yeah, we got a lot of work to do in Minnesota. We've got a lot of work to do. And then I'm often editing this PowerPoint less than 24 hours before I begin, and I had to share it longer ago than 24 hours, so I presented to the Department of Human Services Tuesday, so you see their building there, but imagine you're the front of neighborhood church up there. And I guess I would ask, when people walk through that door, cross your threshold, what kind of code switching did I just... What kind of code switching, if any, would happen for someone entering your space today when you're worshiping together or just on any other day? And what if we walked the full block here on a business day when all the stores and organizations are operating and people were going to walk from room to room or from building to building? How much would people have to code switch as an LGBTQIA2 plus person going into different buildings along your main drag here, or going into the school, or going to L&M or Super One or wherever? How is this space, how does this community stack up in that regard? And I would say this little collection of people has the capacity to help change those conditions that exist as you would navigate your way through this community. And it would require a little bit of bravery on your part to step up and be an ally and make other people uncomfortable, because that's what we got to do, right? We got to get people feeling uncomfortable, before they're going to think stuff through and change their viewpoint and change their behavior from there. So yeah, I think if we had time, I would tell you why the man-identified people in this room right now, you got the most power to do the most positive change. You do. You really do. And yeah, don't have time to talk about it, but just know you got that power. You got a lot of you got a big safety bubble around you. Yeah, work that bubble. Nikki and I were talking about safe. I can just wing it from here. Nikki and I were talking about safe space indicators, and safe space stickers are really popular, and you can go online and buy all kinds of different ones. I would recommend, if you're going to go that route, to make something specific to this space, your congregation, or in your workplaces if you're doing safe space stickers. But I would also say you got to live into that, and I would really recommend that you train quite deliberately before sticking any safe space stickers up on a doorway or your office door or on the back of your clipboard or whatever way you want to drop that clue that you're a potentially safe person, and this could be potentially a safe space that someone might be walking into. Because a lot of times there are safe space stickers up. Young people and adults enter a space, think they can let their guard down, and they get harmed in some way. And then they're probably not going to come back. And they're going to go tell other people, hey, this happened to me when I was at such and such a place. There are studies that indicate that if even, like in a school setting, if a teacher has a safe space sticker up and kids decide to go let their guard down, eat their lunch in that room, and they do get harmed in some way by that teacher, then all the safe space stickers lose their power in that school. Okay, so you got to be really deliberate and prepared to live into knowing how to hold that safe space for people. And a lot of times you might be hearing the phrase brave space. That's kind of really what we got going on here, is even a space that is claimed to be safe for a certain population still is going to take a fair amount of bravery to be there. And if you truly are exercising brave space, you want to try to have people who are from a marginalized population feel comfortable enough to stay there, but also the people who are not from that marginalized population need to feel uncomfortable enough to stay present with that person and have conversation. Good conversation happens in brave space. So in terms of stickers, I guess I would suggest a campaign for stickers that say safer space, because we just can't fully guarantee safe space. Yeah, we're all on different spots on the learning curve, and intentionally or unintentionally, we're going to do harm sometimes. And probably the ideal would be kind of merged brave space and safe space, where you know that you can let your guard down, but sometimes when you're together with other people in that space, you're going to talk about some of the hard stuff. And then when you need to, you can regress back to the safer space part of that space. But yeah, that's what we got to do, is make those brave spaces bigger so we don't necessarily need as much safe space, because we learned a bunch of stuff when we were hanging out with each other in the brave space. So 11 o'clock. Okay. Y'all got that in you? Remember, I was a biology teacher. I can like keep going. So, well, I'll just reinforce the three basic needs I had mentioned: the need for all of us to feel significant, to belong, to be safe, and I'm going to slide the queer lens in front of it. So, the issue of feeling significant. One way to let people know that they're significant is that you will come to know and use their true names and pronouns. That is the number one thing on the kids' list when they're asked, we usually ask it in the context of school settings, how can your teachers and staff make it easier for you to be in school? And we asked in 2017, pronouns and names was at the top of the list. We asked again this year, a couple of schools. Pronouns and true names are still at the top of the list. So we've done some good, but we haven't done really, really well on that pronouns and true names stuff for kids. So yeah, keep that in mind. And also keep in mind that code switching, you as allies, you got to code switch with us too. Because remember, I might tell you that I'm genderqueer. I'm not a woman, I'm not a man, I'm genderqueer. I'm a tomboy straight out of the 1970s. I use she, they pronouns. But if I bump into you at L&M a little bit later today, maybe you don't want to ask me a really loud question about my genderqueerness. Okay, so to be heads up about how we're hopping in and out of that closet constantly, and sometimes you got to do that hop with us. And in school settings, good schools devise ways to collect true names and true pronouns, but also how to have flags or markers to indicate. But if this student's parent comes in, don't use their true names and pronouns, because all hell is going to break loose for them at home, and maybe for you as a school trying to support this young person. It's crazy time to try to be respectful, right? Yeah. You probably live that every week. Yeah. Number one, to gain people's trust so you can find out about their authentic selves. Number two, to get it in your brain so you remember it correctly. And number three, then, to have to hop in and out of safe space and unsafe space with those people, using their true names and pronouns when it's safe, and going back to using their legal name and given pronouns when it is less safe. It takes a lot of mental gymnastics to be on top of that. But we can do it because we got big groovy brains and we only use like 10% of them. So like have at it, learn those pronouns. I practice with my cats. Nutters is the they them cat. White Stripes, he's got some toxic masculinity issues. He's clearly a he him cat. And then Donald Ferguson, the neighbor cat, is the wild card. And so if I have to learn zir pronouns, that's Donald. So I talk about Donald to the other two cats, and I just talk a lot about Donald using zir pronouns about Donald. So you can do it, practice. And you're going to mess up. I do frequently. And here's what you should do when you mess up. You acknowledge, oops. You apologize, sorry. And you can self-correct quickly or just carry on. If you were chatting about something, keep chatting. If you were chopping onions together, keep chopping onions. This is what you shouldn't do. This is advice straight from the kids. And even if it was like the 12th time you've misgendered a kid this week, and you're feeling really bad and you're going to cry, try not to over-apologize and cry. If you need to cry, go to the back room or find some adult life form to cry to. Don't start crying in front of that kid because you just misgendered them. You gave them a little negative hit, and now you're an adult standing in front of a kid, and kids are not quite sure how to comfort adults. And so they say, can we touch their arms? What should we do? If this adult just broke down in front of us because they mispronounced us, for the 5th time today. If you start crying and you can't extract yourself from the situation, it becomes about you, right? And it was supposed to be about that cool kid that you were having some communication with. So just make it quick. Oops, sorry, I meant they, and carry on from there. And if you've got a deep relationship with that young person, then you can go and have a talk about it maybe a little later. Or as your relationship deepens, you can have a conversation about it. But in the moment, especially if there's other people around, don't turn it into a production about you and how bad you feel. Does that make sense? Yeah. And then relative to belonging, be mindful of chosen families. Marginalized people around all identities often cobble together chosen families. And if you're welcoming families of origin or biological families, make sure you're communicating that you're welcoming chosen families as well. And treat them just like you would treat biological family members. If you're passing out hot dogs and having a gunny sack race, everybody gets hot dogs and everybody gets to be don't opinionate about, you're not this child's Who are you? What are you doing here? You be cool about that and welcome them. Because chosen families get us through a lot. And they should, sometimes because of the hostility around, they have to be kind of hidden. But if you're creating safer space, they'd be really happy to be like recognized as a person supporting this particular young people. And then relative to safety, I don't know, I've already riffed on how not safe it is right now. Especially when you've got intersecting identities. I'll use the example of Transgender Day of Remembrance, where we try to recognize people who at least whose deaths were reported related to hate crimes. Actually, internationally, if you were to look at a pictorial arrangement of those people across the United States, across the world, who are murdered each year due to their identity, there's 4 dangerous intersections happening. Number 1, trans, to be a transgender person. Number 2, to be a woman. Number 3, to be a BIPOC, especially to be black. Number 4, to be young. These deaths are grossly underreported, that erasure business. Last year in the United States, there were 45 hate crime deaths reported. Almost all of them were trans black women, and almost all of them were young. So, yeah, safety is so important. And I think I'll close with my one of my favorite points to sermonize around, and that's safety held up against discomfort. We've already touched on that a little bit, especially related to kids in school settings. The safety of children should rise above the discomfort of adults. Always, always. And that table is flipped right now for the most part. The discomfort of adults is pandered to, and the kids remain unsafe. And that's why we see 47% rate of suicidal ideation amongst trans people in general, higher amongst some trans kids. I mean, the negative indicators are so high for the LGBTQ plus population in general, and especially kids. Chemical use, risky sexual behavior, mental health issues, suicidal ideation, self-harming, extremely high for LGBTQI2 plus adults and kids. And part of the reason that's happening is because we are still insisting that adult discomfort is paid mind to more so than the psychological, emotional, spiritual, physical safety of precious, awesome kids. So I'll land there.
Thank you, Kathy, so much. What a great word for us to hear, too, right? Absolutely. So I'm going to pray and close out. Kathy is going to stay and hang out. So if you have more questions for her and you want to chat a little bit, you can do that. So I'll pray and we'll end. So God, thank you for what you're doing in us, and for the things that are landing on our hearts that maybe we felt uncomfortable or we felt challenged to grow and to try something new or something different. We take that as something deeply sacred and good to make even this place at Neighborhood a safe space. So help us to do that good work and to create safe spaces wherever we go. In your name, amen. All right, I'm going to turn on some music, and thank you so much for coming to church today.